Hello, everybody. It's me, SqatCobblr. I'm back. I'm back here on Scrollies Ratnado. It's good to be back in studio. Why is there all this tarping around? Do I smell Clorox? What happened here, Ratnado?
I mean, I cleaned up, but honestly, I left the Clorox just to make sure. Like, if you came in and was like, I don't smell anything, everything seems normal. Well, that would have been a sign for me that I didn't do a good enough job, or that you're possibly, well, you can explain.
I've been a little under the weather lately, folks, so apologies for my absence. But we had some great guests lately, and, now we're back. Me and Ratnado, the OGs here on Scrollies, to talk about a log-running sub-series we've done, I guess. or we can just call it one long continuation of episode 20.
Exactly.
The composers, Ratnado, we've reached number 5 of 5. As you see in the title, we are on our final picks, which doesn't mean that we like them the least. It just means that we thought of them last.
But it does mean if they didn't make the list, we think their music is terrible. So
it's true, yeah. Anyone else that's not discussed today, I mean, just, we're all haters here. But we'll begin into that in a moment, Ratnado. The place looks spotless, looks clean. Eggy is still messed up because, the youth these days, they're all very health conscious, and we respect that.
Yeah,
we respect that, Eggy. Nonetheless, Ratnado, while I've been out of streaming and recording condition, I have had some time to play some games offline. Do we want to talk about that for a moment?
Ooh, I think I'm always ready to do that. So what have you been playing, Mr. SqatCobblr, in your downtime? I mean, you deserve it, I'm gonna be honest.
In my sick time, I have been, well, let's just say it's a bit ironic that we had an Ultra Bot on last week, because I have been blasting bots in Atomic Heart.
Ooh.
I've been playing it on Game Pass. I was probably gonna buy it regardless, but then I saw it was on Game Pass. I'm like, oh, all right, well, hey, why not? I'll give it a shot for free. And I did not know much going into it. I did talk about this game a couple months ago when we talked about our most anticipated games of 2023. The reason why, Ratnado, we were unfamiliar with the studio is because it's actually their first game. Mundfish is making Atomic Heart as their first foray into the gaming landscape, and for a first attempt, so far so good. I will say, yeah. I was pretty unaware of plot and I guess all that ahead of time. I knew it was kind of an alternate reality, Soviet themed, and you fought robots, but that's about it. I did not know that the main character was kind of a Duke Nukem type. Dropping F-bombs, and just like he's a teenager who just learned how to swear. It's just very edgelord, very cringe in a way, I was told. So I was like, well, I can easily avoid that by let's just say playing in a more native dialect. And Ratnado, I must say,
by the way, your Russian is superb.
Spasiba. Thank you, SqatCobblr. Appreciate that. No, that's awesome. That is really cool. I mean, I feel like that's a good way to do it. What about the game has really stood out? Because I've also heard that a bunch of people it's a really good game. Outside of the 2 robot ladies that I see anytime it's brought up, I know nothing about it.
Yeah, we're getting some Resident Evil Village types of support from that, but nonetheless, honestly, the aesthetic I think is really, really well done. The world design is phenomenal. There's lots of little Easter eggs and logs you can go into for added lore about the world, so really well thought out in that sense. The robots are chock full of personality. You'll know what I mean when you meet the vending machine. That's all I gotta say about that. But I haven't really gotten too far into it. I'm really only in the first facility so far. It's pretty puzzle heavy, and if I had to say one criticism, it's probably that the combat's not the best, but I'm also pretty bad at shooters in general, so it could just be that to blame. I don't know. It just feels like it's not as intuitive when you need to get into close combat melee encounters.
Kind of an FPS thing in general.
Yeah. So that's on me more than likely, but yeah, really digging the world, really digging the, I guess just the very nature of hey, we're playing. It's a period game in the 50s, but we're playing in this alternate world where this Soviet country was super advanced, and we're seeing what that was like. So kind of Wolfenstein-y in that way, and obviously not in a different type of reality, but similar vibes.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I've heard great things. Eventually, I imagine I'd like to give it a try, but haven't yet.
Well, hey, maybe one day, Ratnado, but not today, because today you're playing something else, I presume.
Ooh, yeah, actually, I started playing Super Castlevania 4 for Strunch. Here's the thing about it. I didn't go into it being like, I'm gonna finish this game. I was kind of just like, hey, what should I play today? And Papa Warstaff, Ultrajonic, a couple other people who came in, they're like, yeah, you've got Castlevania, let's play that. So I jumped in. I've mostly played Kid Dracula on it, which is phenomenal, by the way. If you haven't played it, if you ever see that on sale, it goes on sale often, that whole Castlevania collection. It's really good. Kid Dracula is great. But Super Castlevania 4, I've kind of just had fun, just like, again, with no expectations. I have a list of games that I need to finish on stream. So this isn't one where I'm like, I'm going to do this the whole way. It's just like, yeah, I kind of want something to jump into just here and there without it being like a main event that I have to finish. It's just like, anyway. But it's great. I haven't really played it before. I'm familiar with it. Out of all the Castlevanias, it's the one I probably played the least. And I'm pleasantly surprised. It's really good. It's a little slow. It's a little archaic to go back and play something 20-something years old. And but it still holds up. And I've got my things with Metroidvanias. Like I enjoy them, but sometimes they get overwhelming.
Well, Ratnado, this predates the Igavania Symphony of the Night.
Mm-hmm.
This is old school. This is linear Castlevania. It's just A to B. And I myself have played through Super Castlevania 4. In fact, I beat it for the first time several months back. I played it also on the Castlevania Anniversary Collection, so I am very familiar with this manner of playing it. And how far into the game would you say you are?
I think I got to stage 5. It's really good. I really like it. Like, I got stuck on some jumping stuff on stage 4 for like 20 minutes. But beyond that, like, it plays really fun. It's not too easy, but it's also not like, it's not punishing, which again, that's what I like. I just like something that's like, challenge me a little bit. If I fail once, that's fine, but I don't want to be sitting here on every boss for 2-3 hours before I beat it. So I don't know. Yeah, I like it. It's pretty good. Maybe I'll finish it, but I'm definitely going to keep playing it. So
makes sense. I will say I was surprised by how much of the game was on the back end after you get into the castle. I thought it would just be a couple levels, but it's like basically only halfway. Fun fact, Super Castlevania 4, basically a tech demo for the Super Nintendo. Every level showcases a different mode that the console supported. So
interesting.
That's neat. And the old game jank is no doubt apparent, as always.
Yeah, it's a little rough, but all things considered, it's still pretty fun. I put the scan lines on, and Zimris came in and said, "Hey, I like those scan lines." I thought he was joking, but he was actually serious. He liked them, and I was like, "Yeah, it's not the best, but it's kind of fun to play with sometimes."
Zimris was impressed with those scan lines, you could say.
Music was great, SqatCobblr. The music in it was amazing.
The music was great in Super Castlevania 4, Ratnado, but it may not be the only Castlevania soundtrack we talk about this episode, because as we get into our composer discussion, I myself have a composer to highlight who is probably best known for her work on Castlevania.
There you go. Yes, I'm hyped. Yeah.
So I guess I'll go ahead and introduce her. Michiru Yamane was responsible for originally in the series Castlevania Bloodlines on the Genesis, but I am going to be highlighting her work on Castlevania Symphony of the Night. It's become a new favorite after having played it for the first time in 2021 during Hauntober. I've gone back to it several times since then, and the music just continues to get better and better every time I do. So much variety in it. I'm sure we'll be talking about that in greater detail. She's done other games too. Suikoden is a series I believe that she frequently composes. I know Kleben Splurkner, shout out, is a big fan of those games, but I myself have never even touched them, so can't speak to that. But yeah, Ratnado, how about yourself? Who is your final composer?
Oh, interesting that you said final. I let this slip to somebody on stream, so hey, you already knew this about a week ago. My final of 5 composers is a Final Fantasy composer, believe it or not. And kind of crazy that this one came up because there isn't really, I mean, outside of Nobuo Uematsu and Yoko Shimomura, you know, there's a couple of their names that get thrown around with Final Fantasy composing. But I'm sure Vivian is going to be really excited to hear this. My number 5, Masayoshi Soken of Final Fantasy XIV fame. And man, he really crept up. And this isn't to say that there's other people out there. There were some others that I was contemplating, but just for the breadth and the scope of work that Masayoshi Soken has done, and a little story I'll share a little bit later on, we'll talk about exactly why I put him up so high.
You know what's really remarkable, Ratnado? This top 5 composers list has been going on longer than you've been playing Final Fantasy XIV.
That is pretty crazy. That's true, by like a month and a half, 2 months maybe.
Basically, long time coming. But hey, we got to get the Final Fantasy representation in there. I've highlighted all major monkey composers at this point, so it's only fair that you cap off the list with how you started it with Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
And before we get into that, right, Nato, let's talk a little bit about Michiru Yamane. So she was classically trained as a pianist. She studied Bach and plenty of other classical or Baroque composers in her youth, and also rock.
Whoa!
So 3 very distinct influences there, and very much so reflected in the soundtrack for Symphony of the Night. You have obviously some very classical tracks like Wood Carving Partita, and the Pearl Dance song. And I mean, those sound like straight out of music class. I would have heard that covering all the old composers growing up. It would have fit in very closely with any of their symphonies and toccatas and stoccatas and all these Italian terms for music.
Forte.
Yes, crescendo. Nonetheless, you also have tracks like Dracula's Castle and The Tragic Prince and Our Festival, which are very rock heavy, and you would think, wow, these must be very jarring to be in the same game soundtrack, and yet they fit together incredibly well. I mean, I can name more: Marble Corridor, Illusionary Dance. I mean, Lost Painting. All of these tracks are so good. If you haven't played Symphony of the Night, check it out just for the music alone, if you may. But yeah, she was drawing from all these different influences going into this game, and yet it's amazing because this game, with a soundtrack that I love so much, has probably the worst end credit song I've ever heard in any game ever. I Am the Wind. Which Ratnado, right?
Oh, I don't know if I think that's okay. Continue. Sorry, I'll speak after.
As far as I can tell, she didn't have any part in that specific track. But Ratnado, you'll be shocked to learn Cynthia Harrell is the vocalist on that track, and she is also the vocalist on Snake Eater. So very far into the spectrum there. I see. Here's the thing, Ratnado. I say it's the worst end credit song because the first time that I played Symphony of the Night, I got the bad ending initially, and I thought that was indicated by how bad the end credit song was.
Oh no! Yeah, I mean, that was the time though. That if they were gonna do it, somebody might have been crazy.
That would have been the time, and that would have been the indication. Oh, okay, clearly this is the bad ending. I gotta keep playing to get the good song.
Interesting.
But little did I know.
I'll have to re-listen because from what I remember, it was okay, but it's been a while.
It's more that it's just really jarring. It seems like super just distinct from everything else in the game, that it's just I don't know.
Yeah.
It really stuck out to me when I played it, but maybe there I Am the Wind fans out there.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, my composer didn't write that, so we don't really have to talk about it this time around. Send your hate mail to scrolliespodcast@gmail.com.
Someone out there just the biggest fan of it. Yeah, you know, it's interesting that you bring up specifically Wood Carving Partita, because in, I believe, middle school, high school, the friends that I used to play Star Wars Galaxies with, I remember I got a lot of music from a friend who was super into anime, super into Konami games, and specifically that song. I remember him being really hyped about it. I'm like, you have to listen to this song. He sent it to me on AIM, and it probably took like 15 minutes to send to me. But I remember hearing that and being like, what in the world is this song? Is it Is it like Baroque? I mean, I probably didn't know that term at the time, but is this classical? Is this like a fighting game? What is going on? Having not played Symphony of the Night at that point, and shout out Evangelion, that was his name. We called him Evan, and a couple other songs. He sent me a lot of good music from video games, like Konami games specifically. So yeah, hearing that it's Michiru Yamane, that's who it is. I've listened to Suikoden soundtracks. I haven't played the games. I watched Cleve play it a little bit, but I definitely know her music from Bloodstained. They brought her back for that, and she is the Castlevania maker. She is the sound of Castlevania as much as like, there's a visual guide, a visual style to it. She is Castlevania.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, she continued along with Igarashi with his sub-series of Castlevania games, which basically trailblazed the Metroidvania genre as we know it, along with the Metroid series. But they brought her back. Igarashi said, hey, you're part of what made my Castlevania game so great, so obviously we want you in the spiritual successor. And I do own Bloodstained now, Ritual of the Night. I have not actually taken the time to partake in it, but maybe Ratnado, one of these days, we will go out this evening for pleasure. The night is still young.
It is still young. It's pretty crazy because, I mean, I think there definitely is like something to that time. And as much as like you don't like that song or whatever, I think there's something kind of inherently like cheesy about it looking back, is like, what is the coolest thing? Like teenagers, what did teenagers think was cool versus like now? I'm like, that was kind of cheesy and corny, but I still like it because it instills like a feeling. And I think late 90s, early 2000s have a very special place in my heart, despite like now people being like, oh, that was so bad, that was bad voice acting, the music sounded so synthetic and fake and blah blah blah. But it's like, no, that was what video games were. It's a style in and of itself, and I think it's very unique to that time. And everything I've heard from those games, anything she's worked on, like it truly is like no one else makes music like that.
Certainly not. And the music, I think, was certainly a selling point with the game, given that it was on the PlayStation, which had CD quality music, lest we forget. And folks, we mentioned it here on Scrollies before. We won't spend too much time on it again, but if you have your original copy of Symphony of the Night, toss it in a CD player and Alucard will say,
as you can see, this is a PlayStation black disc. Cut number 1 contains computer data, so please don't play it. But you probably won't listen to me anyway, will you?
I don't know if she composed this, but yeah, it's a pretty cool little Easter egg. Anyway, that's about all I gotta say about her. I wish I knew more of her work that I could highlight, but much like you yourself covering Persona, I mainly know her from this one game. Rondo of Blood, another Castlevania game, also has a banger soundtrack, but she did not compose that one either. So I will talk about that another day. Whoever the composer that is, we'll consider them an honorable mention to my top composers list.
Yeah, exactly. I do wish that we could get that back. I think that every game either has to be like kind of cutesy and indie these days, or like a super serious AAA. And I think there was just something kind of like fun and whimsical about Konami and Capcom as well back in like 97, 98 to 2000 maybe. And I think a lot of things have changed that, but I would go out. It is early, and I would go out. So just know that offer's on the table if you ever jump into Bloodstained. If you ever even stream it a little bit, at least give it a try. That would be really cool.
Just little sampling, just little blood splatter on my palate.
a taster.
Yeah, it's just a little sampling, yeah, of
and Suikoden as well.
Maybe Bloodstained first.
Yeah. No numbers games.
But Ratnado, let's never a numbers game, except for Final Fantasy VI when you request a Ratnado, because you always have that opportunity to request it. Now, Ratnado, speaking of numbers games, speaking of soundtracks,
yeah,
let's jump into Final Fantasy XIV and discuss your composer for a moment, shall we?
Oh, absolutely. As I kind of said up top, I think there's something very special about Final Fantasy XIV. I think in a way, like a lot of things, when things get too popular, I don't want to like them too much. So when I was like, here's my favorite top 5 Final Fantasies, Vivian, she was like, Final Fantasy XIV is the best one ever. And I was like, I don't think I'll ever get there. But I did admit that I think it's in my top 3. It's gone from like, you know, top 10 to top 3, which is saying something. It's a really good game, and I can't deny it just based on the hours I spent playing it. Like, I can't deny it.
It speaks for itself.
I think we're around 1,200 hours.
Few people will still be pretty mid on a game when they've logged 500 plus hours, let alone... You've got to be close to 1,000 at this point.
I'm past 1,000 at this point.
Easily. Yeah. Oh man, you're entering Draco layer numbers now.
Yeah, 100%. Well, some of the times I'm online and I'm not actually playing, and I'm just hanging out. Or one thing I do to incentivize myself, I'll do a dungeon and then I'll be like, go do this chore. And it's crazy because so much of this music, Masayoshi Soken, he's done a phenomenal job. The beginning of this game, the music was like pretty standard video game stuff, but as the game continues to go on, it's kind of like they let him do his own thing. As I understand it, he grew up in the United States. He was like, you know, he might have been born in Japan, then come to California, where he was just introduced to so much different music. He was able to be part of bands, trained in music and all those kind of things. And then by the time, you know, he had kind of gone back and he got called in, you know, they got him to... There's some other stuff that he's done for Square. Most important thing, though, is when he comes into Final Fantasy XIV, it really feels like, as opposed to like Final Fantasy 13, 12, I guess 11 to some degree, even though I think Nobuo Uematsu had some help on that. Final Fantasy XIV, specifically A Realm Reborn, which is like the modern version versus the one that nobody liked. He's just brought in so many influences. I won't go super deep, and I'm not going to read them all off. But oh my gosh, you guys, if you're never going to play Final Fantasy XIV, just give some of the music a try. Look for best Final Fantasy XIV music. There's lots of rock in there. There's some fantasy. Jazz? Traditional, you know, Japanese music, Chinese music, even for like places that are kind of inspired by those. And oh my gosh, like honestly... It blows me away how the music is like front and center. SqatCobblr. I don't know if you've ever heard anything from Final Fantasy XIV, or I'm trying to think if there's anything that like you might have heard, like a meme or something.
Or Ratnado, at a time it was all you would ever say you were playing when we did these intros, so no. I would have to find music to match it. So I feel like I found quite a bit of Final Fantasy XIV music just to accompany your gushing over it.
That's true. That's a good point. I remember at some point you're like, okay, yeah, like I don't know what else should I use, and I'm like, oh man, oh boy, some of it is spoiling. Listener, right now, really quick, don't pause this, but write this down to listen to later, and I'll probably make a soundtrack for you to go through. When I knew this game was special, when I knew that the music was special, there's a specific part, there's a raid, and that's just for like 4 to 8 players to go in and fight this thing. I believe it was with Vivian, I believe it was Ultrajonic, I might have even been with Code Synth, and the theme, Fallen Angel, for this specific boss fight, it's just like timed up, it's queued up, the cinematics are great, and it just hits you. It's rock, it's fantasy, and I think that's what I like about it, that it's not like World of Warcraft where it's just like, you know, medieval European sounding music, but there's nothing wrong with that. But there's something modern about this music as well too, that kind of just like, ooh yeah, there's a guitar going, and there's some bass, and like I can jam with this. And so go for real, I'm gonna make a playlist, go check it out, go listen to some of those songs, because the gameplay and everything does a lot too, but the music is just incredible.
Well, you know, we started this list with One Winged Angel, and we're ending it with Fallen Angel. That's just and Final Fantasy all around, so it's just poetic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's forget, One Winged Angel didn't even make his top 25, everyone, so
it's probably top 30 now, after Final Fantasy XIV. Again, if you're never going to play this game, go look up To the Edge by Masayoshi Soken. This is kind of a cool story. I believe it was in 2019 or 2020. The newest expansion, Shadowbringers, had just come out, and they do this fan festival thing, and he shows up, and he's like, hey, I've got this stuff I want to do, here's the song. Shadowbringers had come out, and everybody had loved it, only for him to come in and announce, "Hey, everybody, I've beaten cancer. I was working on it during Shadowbringers."
Oh, wow.
He's telling the director, people call him Yoshi P. He's like so like emotional because he's like, like you did this great music that like kind of accompanies this big, huge moment of game, like the lead up of like 100 hours of gameplay. And it hits hard. And anyways, I'm just talking and rambling now, so I'll stop here. Masayoshi Soken is incredible.
Absolutely. And man, that is talk about a personal achievement accompanied by a accomplishment in your artistic endeavors. Wow, that's really, I can't imagine the actual process of even crafting such a work. Wow. Ratnado, at this point, our list has come to an end. Ultrajonic will no longer be listening to Scrollies because of the... No, I'm just kidding. Everybody, we have more top fives awaiting. Ratnado strongly pushed for having these each as their own episode. Probably for the best, as you will be finding out very soon in your feed. Just keep an eye peeled, and you may see what episode 20 may have been like in another timeline. More episodes await you, more top fives await you, and
I do think that people engage more when we say stuff. You know, we should just say stuff so people are go, "What? That's not true," and get the street talking about things.
There's no such thing as bad press. Now that we've left off all of your favorite composers, please get us trending on Twitter. Cancel Scrollies. Anyway, Ratnado, thank you so much for taking the time to join me in this discussion and to share these composers that mean so much to you. And likewise, I have been very pleased to have shared my top five. I don't even think I knew what my top five was when I started this list, but looking at it now, yeah, checks out. I think all of these artists are on my regular rotation of video game tracks that I listen to on the regular.
Yeah, Donkey Kong, Zelda, and Metroid, and Castlevania. That's very indicative. That is very representative of SqatCobblr.
Basically. And Final Fantasy, Western Final Fantasy, and Star Wars. Right, Nana.
There you go.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for stopping by this week. It's good to be back on Scrollies. Look forward to catching you in the next one. I've been SqatCobblr. You can catch me on youtube.com/@SqatCobblr and twitch.tv/SqatCobblr, where I'm playing Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga. Hopefully less breaks between playthrough sessions will be in the near future, but it remains to be seen. Other than that, Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. It's been going for a while, but I think this is the final stretch. I'm entering World 4. Ooh. So keep your eyes peeled on the sub feed for that. And hey, final boss. After that, new game. Who's to say what it is? You'll just have to wait and see. How about yourself, Ratnado?
Yeah, what's up? It's Team Ratnado. I'm doing raids Monday nights, 7 to 10 p.m. MST. We've got RatCon coming up May 26th through May 29th. Check with Papa Warstaff. We are kind of just gauging out to see if we need more for more people to come. It's going to be great. So if you're thinking about it, just check in. We're going to try to get some information up soon so you can kind of know what's happening, what's expectations, etc. What else? I think that's mostly... Oh, yeah. FanFest, Final Fantasy XIV in Las Vegas this summer. Me and Ultrajonic got very exclusive tickets. We're going to be trying to do some streams there. We'll see how it goes. Hyped. It's going to be a good time. Beyond that, yeah, check it out. Try and do Strunch, and yeah, I think that's it.
Big hype, big hype. Hey, that's a lot coming up. That's a lot of in-person gatherings. I look forward to a RatCon Scrollies Live coming back at you again this year. So, topic TBD. It'll be something that all the guests who are willing and want to participate will be able to discuss. So all your favorites will be meeting up for Scrollies Live. I don't know if we have enough mics, Ratnado. We might have to buy some more. We might have to expand the Scrollies studio into an entire separate wing of the building so we can actually fill these guests in. I'm excited for it.
To be fair, it might be a good idea to just make some people share them just for the sake of
No, they all got their own.
oh man, you know, just so we're not all like, oh sorry, oh excuse me, no you
Well, we'll have to toss around the talking pillow.
Yeah,
you can only speak with the talking pillow.
fair.
All right, everybody. All right. Thank you so much for listening. We will catch you in the next one. See ya.
Bye.